Hey, this is Brandon with Pickleball Effect. Today we're going to review of the new Engage Pursuit Pro series. So this is the second big paddle drop that Engage has done this year. A few months ago they released the Engage Pursuit Ultras. I didn't give those a very positive review, and I wasn't the only one. It didn't seem like it was well received by the market because they've already released a new series called the Pursuit Pro. And it seems like all the things I didn't like about the Ultras were fixed with the Pursuit Pro, like spec wise, right? So if I'm looking at the butt cap, it doesn't have that dumb bubble butt cap like the other one has. They covered up the exposed polymer, and then they gave it a new facing material that's now a raw T700 carbon fiber, which is probably the biggest change they made from this and the Ultras. So it does have that raw carbon fiber. It feels gritty to the touch. I expect that this is going to give us a lot more spin and that it will last longer than what the facing material gave us from the Ultras. And then technology-wise, this is not thermoformed, but they do have the foam injection around the perimeter of the paddle. But the foam injection doesn't go all the way through the handle, so most paddles with foam injection, the foam goes around the perimeter and through the handle, but they stop it right here at the top. So when you rip the grip off, you can see that there's no foam there. And then lastly, Engage has a unique core that they call their black core. So if you were to take the facing material off, the color of the core would be black instead of that typical kind of yellowish white color that we see from cores from other brands. I'm not exactly sure what they do to make it black, but it does feel different. Their past Pursuit models do feel and play differently from other polymer core paddles. So something they do to the core does make the paddle play a little bit differently. A couple of questions I have going into this review is: one, is it going to give us the spin we're looking for and want from the Pursuit series? And two, is it going to give us the same playability, like power-wise, that the original Pursuits gave us? One of the things I didn't like from the Pursuit Ultras is that it was a little more control-oriented, where a lot of people love the original Pursuits because of the extra power they gave you. So I'll be paying attention to that, and I'm very curious to see if that was adjusted or changed at all from the Ultras. And of course, you have to talk about the price tag. So these are retailing for $260. But when you go on Engage's website and use my discount code 20effect, that's going to knock the price down to about $210. So at $210, this is right in line with the paddles from their competitors like Selkirk, Yola, and Carbon that also have paddles right in that 200 to 220 range. Before we go to the playtest, there are a couple of things on the spec sheet I want to point out. So the Pursuit Pro series has 4 different models. They have an MX, an MX 6.0, an EX, and an EX 6.0. So the MX series is their elongated shape and their EX series is their standard shape. And then each shape has 2 thicknesses. So the 6.0 models are their thicker core models, and then their just normal EX and MX are their thinner core models. So let's look at their elongated shapes first. So it has a 13mm and a 16mm option. Normally I put the average weight in my table here, but this time I put the actual weight of the paddles that they gave me, because they do have 2 different weight options that you can pick from on their website. So they have a standard weight and a lightweight. So the weights of my MX and MX 6.0 came in at 8.06 and 7.87. These would fall into their light category. Then when you look at their swing weights, these are very high swing weights, especially for paddles as light as these are. So the MX came in at 119, while the 6.0 came in at 125. So I would expect that if you got these paddles in the standard weight, that these swing weights would be even higher. So if you do opt to get the MX models, I would recommend getting the light versions, or the swing weight might get out of hand on you. And then looking at the twist weight numbers, so the MX has a measurement of 5.88. This is a little bit on the lower end, but it is typical for what you see for thinner core paddles on elongated shapes. And then the MX 6.0 actually has a pretty good twist weight measurement at 6.57. I would expect it to be a little more forgiving than the MX version. And then looking at the EX models, again, they have a 13mm and a 16mm option. Both of these came in under 8 ounces, which would be one of their light options. The EX has a swing weight of 110, while the 6.0 has a swing weight of 115. These are definitely manageable swing weights, but these are higher compared to what you see from other standard shape models. So again, if you opt to get one of the EX models, I would suggest getting the lightweight option and not the standard weight option. And when you look at these twist weight numbers, these are really good measurements. So the EX comes in at 6.77, while the EX 6.0 comes in at 7.37. The EX in particular has a really high twist weight number for a thinner core paddle, so that's nice to see. And then the twist weight number for the 6.0 is super high. I would expect both of these to be on the forgiving side. So there you go. I have all 4 models with me, and I'll be play testing all of them, and I'll be sharing my thoughts for each. So let's go put these on the court and see how they play. After drilling and playing with the paddles for over 3 weeks, here's my review of their performance. I'll address the 2 big questions I had for this review first, and then I'll speak to the performance of the paddles individually. My first question was about whether or not they're going to give us more spin than their past models. The answer is yes. My spin tests were coming in over 2,000 RPMs, which is a great result and puts them in line with the top spin paddles available. My second question was whether or not they were going to have the same power level as the original Pursuits, since the Pursuit Ultras were softer and less powerful. Again, we got another yes. These hit just as hard as the original series. In fact, if you want a short review, you can describe these as playing very similar to the original series, but with a lot more spin. Now let's talk about how the EX and the EX 6.0 models played, and then I'll talk about the MX and the MX 6.0 models. So I'm categorizing the EX as a power paddle and the EX 6.0 as an all-court paddle that leans towards the power side. Both models hit harder than thermoformed paddles and will add easy offense to your game. I hit the EX and the MX, which are their two thinner core options, side by side the Pro Kennex Black Ace, which is known for being one of the most powerful paddles, and they were both hitting just as hard as it was. So that gives you an idea of the power level of these. The extra power is coupled with the big spin, which is what the original Pursuits were missing, and it's nice to have. It enables you to take better advantage of the extra pop and power they give you. But what's nice about the Pursuit Pros is that they are not thermoformed and don't have that stiffer feeling that comes with thermoformed paddles. Instead, they have a bouncy, crisp, light, and smooth feel at impact. No other paddle I've played has the same feel as these. They are unique. It's much more pleasant than the feeling of a thermoform paddle. Although they feel nice, they are still very poppy and powerful paddles, so they are harder to control and to slow the ball down. Resets from the midcourt were the most challenging, while drops and dinking weren't too bad. There's definitely an adjustment period with these. Speaking about control, I thought I was able to hit better drops and dinks with the thinner core EX and could reset the ball better with the thicker core EX 6.0. My theory as to why that is because of the paddle's launch angles. It seemed that the ball would stay on the face a half a second longer on the EX 6.0, which caused the ball to launch off the paddle higher than the EX. To test my theory, I filmed myself hitting 5 shots with the EX and the EX 6.0 in super slow motion and then graphed the flight paths of the balls. Here was the result. The red lines are the flight paths of the EX 6.0 and the white lines are the flight paths of the EX. Doing this, you can see that the EX 6.0 was hitting the ball just a little higher and carried further than the EX model. This may not be the perfect test, but it's interesting to see. Because of the extra power of the Pursuit Pros, the lower launch angle of the EX made it so I didn't hit so many flyers on drops and returns, and enabled me to be a little more aggressive when attacking fourth shots and just keeping it lower in general. It suited my swing better, though that may not be the case for everyone. In general, I imagine more people would like the EX 6.0 more because it's easier to take pace off the ball than the EX. And if you're a player that finds yourself hitting the ball into the net or have a hard time hitting the ball deep, then you'd like the higher launch angle of the EX 6.0. But take that information how you want. Last thing I'll mention for the EX and the EX 6.0 is that they are both forgiving paddles with big sweet spots. The EX is remarkably forgiving for a thinner core paddle, and the EX 6.0 has an even bigger sweet spot. It was hard to find a dead spot on them, particularly from side to side. However, they weren't as forgiving in the throat area of the paddle like a thermoform paddle is. Now let's shift to talk about the MX and the MX 6.0 models, categorizing these the same way I did the others. The MX is a power paddle, and the MX 6.0 is an all-court paddle that leans towards the power side. The MX model is the most popular model among Engage-sponsored pro players. It hits a little harder than the EX model, and the extra swing weight it has over the EX gives it more plow through and carries through the ball a little bit better. The MX has a lower twist weight measurement, but I didn't think that reflected the size of the sweet spot well. I thought the MX had a decent sized sweet spot and was manageable, though it wasn't as forgiving as the EX model. A lot of the things I said about the EX can also be said about the MX version. The biggest difference between the two is that the MX is heavier, but it also has a smaller sweet spot, it hits a little bit harder, and just has more reach and that longer handle. If you prefer an elongated shape with a longer handle, then I liked the MX and think it's a good option if you're looking for big power, big spin, without that super stiff feel. The MX 6.0 on the other hand is very heavy, almost unplayably heavy. I had a lighter one at 7.87 ounces and it still had a very high swing weight of 125. It felt slow and sluggish and negated a lot of the positive things about it. I don't see myself recommending it too often.
Unless you currently play with the original Pursuit MX 6.0 and you don't mind the extra weight, then I wouldn't point many people here. Outside of the heavy weight, it does play very similar to the EX 6.0, but with a little lower launch angle. I did the same launch angle test with the MX and the MX 6.0, and their launch angles were more similar and less of a factor when switching between them. So here's my recommendation. I like these paddles and do think they are an upgrade from the original Pursuits. These are the paddles I was hoping for when the Ultras were first announced. I love that Engage gives you so many weight, shape, and thickness options to pick the one that best suits you. Because all the models are on the heavier side of things, I would recommend the lightweight version over the standard weight version and the other options they give you. You'll probably like the lightweight version stock, but you can always add weight and you can never take away weight. All of the models are poppy and powerful, so they take some time to get used to. I like that they have a softer feel and that it is more pleasant than thermoformed paddles, but I do think they are harder to control than thermoformed paddles. So if you don't have a developed soft game, then these will be hard to control. But if you're seeking more power and are an intermediate to advanced level player, then I think these are great options. So that's everything I have for you. Thanks for watching, and I hope it helped.